Some days later, at Haley's bakery. A pretty uneventful week later, I find myself seated beside Nat at the large oak table which fills the middle of Haley's bakery. She doesn't like small tables, instead wanting to encourage everyone to sit together at the one massive wooden one. It works sometimes when it's very busy, but not this early in the morning. Only one other couple sit at the table down at the other end. They're partly obscured by the large peony and rose flower arrangement that separates the two sides. The elegant lady to the left leans down to offer her empty plate to her poofy haired little dog, who snuffles up the crumbs without a second thought. My focus is consumed by the happy little scene, my mind drifting easily under the wafting scent of fresh baked bread. The aroma lets me wake, still half dozy in this early morning, as warmly as the morning sun would have if I'd stayed in bed. Eventually, I return my attention to my breakfast partner. Nat bites into a blueberry muffin and her eyes flutter shut to enjoy the flavor. I frown. You can eat. I choke on a question, glancing at the nearby couple. Then I lean towards Nat and whisper, "You can eat actual food then?" She smiles and nods, wiping a few stray crumbs from her lip with her thumb. "Yes, we can digest it just fine as long as we're sustained on." She hesitates, chewing over the next word as much as she'd done so with the muffin. "On our other dietary needs," she eventually continues. "I like the taste of real food, but the flavors and sensations can be too overwhelming for some vampire senses. All they can taste are the separate ingredients rather than the whole thing. It takes some practice to calm our hypersenses into relaxing enough to enjoy the experience." I nod at the explanation, staring down at my half eaten pastry with new appreciation. Wooden chairs squeak across the flagstone floor as the other couple gets up to leave. They smile at us as they go before continuing out of the shop. Their dog suddenly flings her fluffy head in Nat's direction. Nat's perpetual calm smile widens and she begins to make kissy noises at the dog. The little dog's tail wags in a frantic response. She barks excitedly, her tongue flopping out of the side of her mouth. The couple encourage the dog to follow them out, and she reluctantly does. I arch a brow over at Nat, who is still looking after the dog with a smile. The scene isn't exactly something I'd ever picture when thinking vampire. How have you been finding it?" Nat asks suddenly, sliding in her chair to face me. I pick at my pastry, savoring the buttery taste on my tongue. "What do you mean?" "Well, we've barely left your side for the past week, not at work or home. Even if we're only trying to help protect you, I'm worried we might be pushing our welcome." It's true Unit Bravo has stuck around like bees with honey. Their presence has afforded a certain amount of confidence, and they've been extremely helpful in the case. Not that we've been able to progress far in finding Murphy's location. This morning it is Nat's turn to babysit me, and at least she's been decent enough to buy me breakfast. Hmm. Yeah, sure. Don't worry, I say, smiling over at her. I like having all of you around. "All of us?" Nat asks with an arched brow. "I can't see Morgan being many people's favorite house guest." I chuckle. "Yeah, true. But still, it's nice to have the company." "I'm glad you feel that way," she replies, suddenly cheerful. "It's been good for us to work with you, Detective. The team seems to have awoken since you've been around. A waking up we've needed to have kicked into us for some time now." There's a heavy meaning to those words, one which Nat doesn't elaborate on. Instead, she goes back to enjoying her breakfast. The conversation is halted by the tinkling of the bell above the door. The ringing echoes about the shop, announcing the arrival of the rest of Team Bravo. Unit Bravo. The team moved to sit around the table. Well, slouch about it, with Farah and Morgan flopping into chairs next to each other. Ava remains standing, sunglasses hiding her expression. "We were just talking about you," Nat says, throwing me a knowing smile. "Oh?" Farah says, leaning forwards and raising her brows expectantly. "All good things, obviously." "What's wrong?" "Oh, that's me. What's wrong?" I ask Ava. The woman is even more tense than usual, her grey coat nearly bunched up around her ears where her shoulders are so knotted together. "I don't like the quiet," she replies. "We haven't heard a thing from or about Murphy for over a week. I cannot believe he's simply sitting around doing nothing now that he knows who you are." Hmm. Hmm. We'll be ready for him when he strikes, I say, voice full of confidence. Ava cocks a brow and folds her arms. "You seem awfully sure of yourself, Detective." If if you're not sure of yourself, then why are you even here protecting me?" I ask, holding her stare. Farah speaks up. "That's a good point." "I get it," Ava barks, interrupting Farah. The younger agent grins at the tense tone of her team leader's voice. Footsteps shuffle loudly from behind us, and Haley appears at the side of the table with a smile as bright as the sun outside. Anything I can get you? Farah instantly adopts a charming grin, full lips framing her white teeth and eyes glimmering like actual gems. What are you offering? Haley's already pink cheeks flush deeper, the color seeming to want to leak into her pale hair hidden under her usual baker's head. Oh, well, The poor woman stammers at the undeniably attractive sight of Farah, whose smile only widens at her flustered response. We are just fine, thank you. Nat interrupts, gently kicking Farah under the table. The younger agent's charm falters at the sudden pain. Oh, good, that's good. Haley stutters, throwing me an awkward smile before puttering back behind the counter. Being around the team for as long as I have, I've forgotten the effect they even had on me when I first met them. We should check on the Thralls, Morgan says, having ignored the scene. She glances at the time on her plain black cell phone. Good idea, Ava says. I'll go too, I say, standing from my place and brushing off any lingering crumbs. I'd like to learn more about these Thralls. The only evidence of annoyance from Morgan is the shudder of the unlit cigarette she has balanced in her mouth. Even that stops when Ava gives a soft nod over at her. Fine. Morgan spurts, eventually yanking the cigarette out. I'll take your car. I don't fancy waiting around for you to arrive. And then she heads out without bothering to wait for me to collect up my things. In the forest surrounding a group of houses. As I step out of the car, my shoe squelches on the leaf-carpeted ground. The forest is wet even though there's been dry weather for days. Drops of dew still weigh down the scanty leaves, sparkling like diamonds in the foggy speckles of sun filtering through the heavy ceiling of branches. Morgan gets out, slamming the door of my poor little car with enough force that I worry it might come off the hinges. Hey, be careful, I protest. Morgan eyes the car. Think you're long past careful with this thing? The silver vehicle creaks as though in pathetic protest. The two of us begin to trek to the edge of the trees. Mud-brown trunks rise out of the ground like fingers from the palm of a musk-covered hand. Morgan brushes aside a prickly branch of a bush from our path, letting it swing back immediately after she passes. It almost slaps me in the face as I walk behind her. Even with the wetness clinging to my shoes, it's nice to be out in a real fresh air. There's even the chorus of a few squirrels skittering about looking for food after their long winter sleep. Barely any birds are singing, though, I notice. Here, Morgan says, drawing to a stop at the very edge of the forest before the trees give way to manicured lawn. I shuffle up beside her and squint down the slight hill. There's a bundle of white houses gathered together on the far side of the green space. I thought we were going to check on Thralls? I ask. I thought we'd be heading to the facility to talk with the Thralls they had captured the night of the fight. Yeah, they're down there. Morgan juts her chin forward to gesture at the houses. Oh, what? The Thralls that attacked tonight are controlled by Murphy, Morgan explains, more calmly than I would have expected. Her focus shifts from staring down at the small suburb. When a vampire makes Thralls, they can only use them when they're strong enough, at night. Can you make Thralls? Where did you think they come from? I ask casually. She scoffs as though the question is ridiculous. No, I was turned from being a human. Only natural. Oh, can you make Thralls? Not can you make Thralls. Okay. Yeah, English language. No, I was turned from being a human. Only natural vampires from the Echo world can make Thralls. Natural vampires? Morgan eyes me for a moment, then seems to relent against my curiosity. Supernaturals who come from the Echo world are natural supernaturals, but humans can be turned by them and become human-born supernaturals. She shifts uneasily, then straightens herself out. There's differences between the two types, what they can do and shit like that. And you're human-born. She nods. Ra is the only one of us that's from the Echo world. That nugget of information makes my eyes widen. Wait, Farah wasn't ever human? Jeez, I'm not going to discuss Farah's life story with you. She half hisses the words, apparently regretting revealing something that seems rather personal about her teammate. You want to do that? Take it up with her. I'm here to do a goddamn job, so can we just get on with it? I cock my head to one side at the defensiveness in Morgan's tone. It's something she doesn't hold back when speaking about any member of Unit Bravo. Returning to the task at hand, I look back towards the houses. So what happens to these Thralls during the day? Calming her raised hackles, Morgan gives a shrug. They revert back to human with no clue about what they are or what they've done. The agency likes to keep it that way. It would be fascinating to study how that works. My brows pitch up a little and I turn my focus back to the houses where the thralls are. Morgan shakes her head. Not exactly the word I'd use. Maybe you should huddle up with those techs at the lab and fulfill your need there. There's a strange tone to her voice, even more so when she chuckles at her apparent joke. I shake the thought away. You can usually hear them coming because they chant the command they're given. They repeat it to keep it in their fixed skulls, I suppose, she says, fishing a cigarette out of her pocket. She lights it a moment later, smoke mingling with the slight fog that hangs drowsily among the trees. I think Tina mentioned about some chanting around town, I say. At least I'll know if they try to jump me again then. She smirks. It doesn't always happen, just sometimes. I sigh heavily. My phone vibrates in my jacket pocket and I yank it out, moving a few paces away from Morgan to answer it. Detective Langford? Hey, Jules, Tina says from the other end, her voice adding a little brightness to the dew-soaked trees. How's it going? I glance over at Morgan, who is leaning against a tree and puffing out another stream of smoke. I've had better days. What's up? I was just ringing because my shift has ended and I'm off for the weekend, she says. Hmm. Hmm. Okay, that doesn't usually warrant a phone call. You mean you don't want an update on every moment of my life? She asks with a mock gasp. I'm offended. I shake my head, thankful she can't see my amused smile. So why are you ringing? You got a message, she explains, and I thought I'd better give it to you before Douglas forgets. I nod. It's a fair assumption that he would. A shuffle of paper sounds from the other end. Bobby rang. She was looking for you. Said she was checking in on a chat you had. I rub a hand over the back of my neck. Great. Anything I should be worried about? Not at all, I reply, fingers wrapped tightly around my phone. Well, have a good weekend, she chimes. I'm certainly going to. I let out a soft laugh and hang up as she does. Shoving the phone back into my pocket, I trudge back towards Morgan. Does it ever get warm in this town? She remarks, tugging on her coat, a thick leather garment that looks more like a biker's jacket than anything else, just missing the studs and emblem. It's early spring, I point out, glancing about the bare trees. It still smells like winter, damp and cold, but a couple of the trees have a few pops of green. It'll only be a couple of weeks until they burst into full bloom at the sun's gentle urging. Morgan grips her cigarette tightly between her teeth. Bloody hell, I can't even feel my feet now. I roll my eyes at her moaning, realizing it's going to be a long afternoon. Next chapter. The weekend at home. It's nice to be home for the weekend. It's a much needed break after everything that's been going on, even if I'm still on call. Unfortunately, having Unit Bravo still pacing around my apartment like guards atop a fortress wall doesn't exactly make it easy to relax. Did I just forget about it? When were we going to check on the thralls last time around, the end of the last chapter? Did we actually do that? Because I didn't get to know anything about that. Something wrong? Rebecca asks. She straightens out my duvet and takes a seat on the bed. Rain beats hard against my bedroom windows. The droplets are so thick they blur the outside world like some kind of dream. No, I reply, tearing my focus away from the window and looking to her. Though I am wondering why you're here. I'd like to think it was just a social call, but she smiles as I let my words trail off. Actually, I'm just here to see you, to check on how you're doing. How I'm doing? I walk across my room towards her. You've had a lot to handle lately, she says, voice soothing and soft. We're all concerned about how you're doing now. I'm focused on catching the killer. That's all I want to think about right now. A sensible plan for now, she says suddenly. But you're going to have to deal with everything else eventually. She gets up to leave, moving towards the doorway before pausing. Her head hangs slightly as she suddenly leans against the doorway, with an uncertain weight on her shoulders. You are my child and I love you. If anything happened... Her words fall into a choked stop, the emotion unexpected for us both. She quickly shakes her head and turns back for the door. Sure, thanks for checking on me, Mom. She turns slowly around to face me, her eyes glimmering for a moment in the rain-dampened daylight that finds its way into the room. Then she smiles, but it's not just any smile. It's a gentle expression that has my head whirling back into my childhood. She used to look at me that way when I was young, when something scared me or something was wrong. It was a secret smile, one she only used when she was going to make everything okay. The sudden jolt back into my memories makes me waver slightly. I only come back to reality when her heels clack on the floorboards outside my room, announcing her exit. The conversation replays in my head, so I move to the window and throw it open. The chill wind whips against my face, refreshing and cold, just what I needed. Rain continues to splash against the glass, the window panes foggy from having the sudden cold against them. Droplets dribble lazily down before falling from the bottom of the frame. I watch their descent as they crash into the puddles on the street below, creating ripples in the small pools that are growing under concrete. I let out a half chuckle, realizing the scene is exactly like my life right now. Unit Bravo walked into my life like a storm, and they're creating unending ripples throughout my once peaceful life. At least it's easier working with them now that everything is out in the open. Maybe I'm gradually coming to understand it all better, and to understand them better. Thinking of the team, it's hard not to realize just how much closer we've become. But is that because I like them personally or just as colleagues on the job? We've worked together closely, sure, but I've been given their secret that already makes it partly personal. But how personal might it ever become? Ugh. Is that really a decision I have to take? I don't care. Um, sure. Fuck it. Uh, when you throw a group of people together, it's not wholly strange for these types of attachments to form. Maybe it would be good to see if it ever might lead somewhere, but with who? Please choose who you would eventually like to pursue a romance with for the series. This choice will then be locked in from here onwards. I mean, if you ask me that way, can't we just form relationships naturally? No? Okay, well, Farah it is. We haven't had much chance to connect. It's only now that I'm thinking this way about Farah because I was forced to decide by the game. um, sure. The case and my work have been such a priority, this is the first time I've really had a chance to consider what's going on with my feelings for Farah. Still, now that I do think about it, I know there's more to what I feel. Though the idea of taking it further might be appealing, she's still an agent with a shadowy agency. I can't really see that helping much with any romantic involvement. Letting out a heavy sigh, I run a hand over the back of my neck and lean against the wall to stare out of the window. Cars thunder through puddles on the road, weaving between the red brick apartment building and adding drama to the already intense storm. Rain lands on my skin and face, drops splashing on my tongue as I take a deep breath. The air still tastes of winter. Well, whatever I think or feel, it doesn't matter for now. There's way too much going on for me to really think about anything serious. And she'll probably be leaving when this is all over anyway. The heavy thought, which affects me more than I would care to admit, is interrupted by a sharp knock on the door. Come in, I call, turning away from the window and almost stumbling over my words to see Farah stroll inside. Geez, you all right? She asks, stepping further inside. You look like you've seen a ghost. Trusting her to pick up on my awkwardness at this moment, I clear my throat. I'm fine. You'll be more than fine when you hear what your mother is doing. She walks up beside me and leans on the other wall of the window alcove. She's talking to the techs at the lab who think they might be able to figure out what Murphy wants from those slides found at the hospital. My brows shoot up. That does make me more than fine. I'd say, Farah mumbles, her gaze drifting over me. I roll my eyes and suppress a chuckle. Anything else I need to know? Nope, she says and shrugs. But if you don't mind, I'd rather stay in here with you. It's a bit of a downer in the other room with that lot being all about work. And you thought I'd be more fun? She grins at me. I always think you're more fun. The expression isn't quite as wide as usual, a heaviness to her words that seem to weigh against the bright smile. I quickly look away when our gazes lock. I love the smell of rain, Farah says, leaning towards the open window and inhaling the fresh air which invades my bedroom. The rain lands on her face, the crystal drops making it look like her skin sparkles. But I don't think it can be as good as the smell of a real home. Well, unless it's filled with dirty laundry or something. I chuckle and shake my head. Must be nice to have somewhere you're settled in, she says. You might not find it so fun to be stuck in one place forever, I say. The young agent seems more at home bouncing around from place to place than anything else. Oh, I don't know, she says, resting her hands on the windowsill. Depends on the company. She turns her head to face me, thick lashes framing those hypnotizing amber eyes. I find myself drawn into her gaze before I can stop myself. Are you suggesting that you think my company would be good enough? I say in a light tone, flirty as always, trying to break through the heavy air between us. It's threatening to stifle me. I don't think so, she replies, and my chest tightens. Chest tightens at the response. I know so. My stomach flips excitedly, and a flutter of butterflies almost make me stumble on the spot. Her focus drops. You'll get a cold if you let the rain soak you. I stare down at my arm resting on the windowsill, glancing over where the rain has settled. I hadn't even noticed the chill of it because my skin has grown so warm. Farah reaches out, her finger running over my arm, catching the delicate droplets to push them off of me. The touch is slow and intensely intimate. I can't help but watch the action, my focus blurred by heavy breathing. She then slides a step closer, and I no longer feel the beating of the rain on me at all. What an unexpected surprise you've been, Detective. Her voice is low and smooth, as though meant only for my ears. Well, I do like to keep people on their toes. She grins wide. You can put me anywhere you want, anytime you like. Okay? My eyes widen at her words. The doorbell rings out around the apartment before I have a chance to reply, but the echo of the chime doesn't seem to cut through the sudden intensity of the moment sparking between us. It's not until Nat calls. I'll go, from the other room, that Farah and I finally glance away from each other. We both turn to look through the doorway of my bedroom to the door beyond. To the room beyond. Next chapter.